Tun Dr. Mahathir, Professor Thompson, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to this episode of the Global Dialogue Sapientia series, jointly organized by the Government and Laws Committee at the University of Hong Kong, GLC, and the Southeast Asia Research Center at the City University of Hong Kong. This is Anfield Tam from GLC, Hong Kong's first non-partisan educational body specialized in law and politics, run by undergraduate government and laws students at the University of Hong Kong. Joining us is a diverse audience of academics and students from the University of Hong Kong and the City University of Hong Kong, as well as other members of the public who take great interest in today's topic. On behalf of GLC, we are pleased to have Dr. Mahathir as the inaugural guest of the Global Dialogues Sapientia series, which is born out of the strategic vision of the GLC to enable everyone, despite being set physically apart by the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic, remains intellectually connected and critically engaged in a variety of contentious issues confronting our globe. We invite leading practitioners and scholars from around the world to participate in conversations in which ideas and solutions collide and evolve. Without further ado, may I invite Professor Mark Thompson, Director of the Southeast Asia Research Center at the City University of Hong Kong, to deliver the welcoming speech. Professor Thompson, please.
Thanks very much, Anfield. On behalf of the Southeast Asia Research Center at the City University of Hong Kong, the only such center for the study of the region in the Special Administrative Region, I would like to join in welcoming our distinguished guest. I'd also like to thank Anfield Tam of the GLC for initiating this co-hosted event. Without doubt, there are few leaders of not just regional but global repute more qualified to discuss the state of Southeast Asian politics than our speaker, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad, who during his long and extraordinary political career has been prime minister both of governments accused of being authoritarian and one which was the result of a democratic opposition coalition election campaign which transformed Malaysian politics. Besides hosting conferences and talks and bringing together scholars and others interested in Southeast Asia in the Special Administrative Region, the center also engages in outreach to the Southeast Asian community in Hong Kong, which it should be noted is over 300,000 strong and which makes significant economic, social, and cultural contributions to the SAR. So without further ado, we're very much looking forward to Dr. Mahathir's talk. And on behalf of CERC, we would like to once again warmly welcome him.
Thank you, Professor Thompson. The distinguished guest speaker for today's webinar series require little to no introduction. The most felicitous Tun Dr. Mahathir bin Mohammad is twice and longest serving Prime Minister of Malaysia between 1981 and 2003, and later between 2018 and 2020. For his achievements, he is regarded as Malaysia's father of modernization. Today, Dr. Mahathir will reflect upon his 70-year political career and the current state of Southeast Asia politics. Dr. Mahathir, thank you for joining us today. Let me start with a more specific question on the Sheraton move. It was exactly 3 years ago when you resigned as Prime Minister for the second time, which was followed by a political crisis. So let us reflect upon what went wrong within the Pakatan Harapan coalition and what was your role as the crisis played out?
Well, when the BN, the Barisan Nasional, or the National Front, lost the election, they immediately decided that they would form a coalition with the Islamic Party to set up what they call a Malay-Muslim government. Of course, the winner, the opposition, is a multiracial party. And they said that it's important that the government should be dominated by Malays. And of course, the government that won in the election was not dominated by Malays. Well, although I was the prime minister, but it's not a domination. But this idea that we should have a Muslim Malay government is very attractive to a lot of Malays. And as a result, many of the supporters of the government, Malay supporters of the government, decided to cross over and join the opposition, giving it a majority and therefore overthrowing the elected government. So when they decided to do this, I disagreed and I refused to cross over. And as a result, of course, my own party, the government party, lost the majority, could not be the government anymore. And before that happened, in anticipation, I resigned from my being the leader of the Malay party in the government coalition. I resigned because they did not show any confidence in my leadership. I had to resign. But of course, shortly after that, the government fell. And of course, when the government was overthrown, I couldn't very well stay on as a prime minister.
Right. So looking back on this period, what do you see as the key factors that contributed to the government's downfall? And what lessons do you believe can be learned from such an experience?
Well, this grouping of the opposition could never defeat the government led by the Malays, by UMNO. They could not defeat. But when we formed a Malay party called Perpaduan, we were able to make the opposition get the support of the opposition by Malays. And because of that, the opposition won the election. And the government lost for the first time in the history of Malaysia. The BN government lost. So the problem, of course, is that many Malays felt that they had exchanged a Malay government with a multiracial government, and they did not relish that idea.
By the way, since now the political crisis has been resolved, but you are known to have a complicated relationship with your former protege, who is also the current Prime Minister, Anwar Ibrahim. So how would you evaluate him as a person and also his government with UMNO?
Well, I wanted to work with him, but he rejected me because he felt that I was not going to contribute towards his leadership. He blamed me for not becoming the prime minister, but I couldn't make him prime minister because I had lost my position as prime minister. The party had lost. So because of that, there was a little bit of animosity between me and him. And he rejected me because he claims that I am not for multiracialism. So he led a multiracial party. And during the 15th election, no party won a majority. But his party, his coalition, won the biggest number of seats. That is to say, they had 82. So they were looking for other parties to join them in order to achieve the majority. And it so happened that the Malay party, UMNO, decided to join their opponents, and then they were able to make up the majority, 112. So they were able to form the government, and the other parties, of course, lost their position. But since they formed the government, many others joined the government. So they have a good majority led by Anwar. But Anwar did not accept myself or my group. He is content to be to have the support of the former opposition plus the former government, UMNO, which did not do well at all in the 15th election. They merely obtained 30 seats. Barisan Nasional had 36, but 30 seats plus 82 makes up 112, and 111 is half the number. So 112 is a majority. So they don't need my support. Besides, I lost the election. So I was not in the position to bolster the number of elected representatives in the government.
Now let's turn to some other questions on the development of Malaysia and Southeast Asian politics in general. So when you first became Prime Minister, Malaysia underwent rapid modernization and development. Yet some suggest that this was often at the expense of human rights and became part of the problem in Malaysian politics. So do you still hold your Asian values today?
Yeah, I still hold to Asian values. But this accusation against me for being a dictator, for not respecting human rights, are made by the opposition. It is, of course, the strategy of the opposition is to demonize the government. If they say the government is doing the right things, I don't think people will vote for them. So in order to demonize my government, they said that I was against human rights. I did not respect all the values that are promoted by the West. So this is an accusation. But what is the evidence that I was a dictator? No dictator in the world have ever resigned. I resigned on my own without being pushed out. And then during the period that I was Prime Minister, I led 5 elections and I won the elections with a 2/3 majority, every one of them. So if the people feel I am against human rights and all that, I'm sure I wouldn't get a 2/3 majority. I may win, but not with a 2/3 majority. What is the labeling by the opposition is, of course, the kind of process that the opposition must rely upon if they want to defeat the government. They cannot very well say the government is a good government. They must say the government is a bad government. And unfortunately, lots of people seem to support the opposition. But you look at Malaysia, do you see people suffering? Are they being arrested and tortured or anything? Nothing like that. Nobody is killed. And of course, when there is an uprising, we have to handle that. So this accusation that I am against human rights and all that, and that Asian values does not include human rights, equality, and those other things, is not true at all. Asians respect human rights. Look at all the Asian countries. Look at Japan. They are a good country. They are well governed. They don't oppress their people. Look at many other Asian countries. No outright oppression of the people. So the label they gave me is the natural label given by the opposition to a government in power.
So let's turn to some foreign policy issues on Malaysia, regarding Malaysia's foreign relations. Malaysia's relationship with China has been a topic of much discussion in recent years, with issues ranging from the Belt and Road Initiative to territorial disputes in the South China Sea. How do you see Malaysia's relationship with China evolving in the years to come? And what steps do you believe are necessary to ensure a productive and mutually beneficial relationship?
For more than 1,000 years, the small Malay states of the peninsula had relation with China. Of course, we accept our status as the vassal states of China. We send them gold and silver flowers every year to signify that we are under them. But they allowed us to govern our country independently. That is the kind of relation that the Malay state had with China. And today it is the same. We accept that we are not a great power, that China is a great power. We cannot fight against China. We have to live with China. I think the whole world will learn how to live with China. And the best way to do that is to have good relations. If there are problems, we discuss them. We discuss around the table, not confront them by sending warships and the like. This confrontation is the wrong strategy for dealing with China. And besides that, China is a great market. It is Malaysia's biggest trading partner. We're not going to give up on that because of Western dislike for China. So we want to remain friendly with all countries, with China, with United States, with Russia, with Europe, because that is our policy, because our main focus is on trade. We want to trade with our markets, not fight against them.
So we would like to round up the discussion a bit. Having become the longest serving Prime Minister and having assumed the office twice, you are undoubtedly a legendary figure in Malaysian politics. Still, you failed to defend your seat in the 2022 general election. So how would you sum up your own political career and legacy?
Simple. I lost because the opposition bribed all the voters. We asked the voters, why do you accept bribe? And they say, well, it's good money. Not much, but it's good money. You didn't give us any money. So they voted for the opposition. That is because of bribery. I'm still regarded as a beneficiary of the island of Langkawi. I could have won there, but I lost because of bribery. And not only me, a lot of people lost because the winners bribed the voters. The corruption in the 15th election was horrendous. Everybody won because of the money. So I don't feel that I'm rejected by the people of Langkawi. I just feel that they won because of the bribe that they gave to the voters.
So will you plan a political comeback as a result of your comments on the recent general election?
Well, a lot of people still come to see me, and they feel that I could help them overthrow a government that was elected through bribery. And I have to at least work with them. I have no ambition to become Prime Minister again, but I wouldn't even contest in an election. But I feel that I have a role to play to advise the younger leaders on how they could win the election and what kind of government they can set up so that we could regain the kind of country that was before known as the Asian Tiger.
So to round up our discussion, and finally, as a statesman and leader with decades of experience, what advice would you give to young people in Malaysia and around the world who are looking to make a positive impact on their communities and the world at large?
I think young people must take interest in the history of their country. It's very important because today they don't read whole articles. They read only the headlines. You know, on the social media, they just read one sentence. Anything beyond that, they won't read, which means that they do not know the background. And many in Malaysia, the young people in Malaysia really do not appreciate what happened before and how they came to be what they are today. So all over the world, young people must take an interest in the history of their countries so as to avoid repeating the mistakes that were made in the past. Because as you know, there is this saying that if you fail to learn from the lessons of history, you will be condemned to repeat your mistakes over and over again. I think the young people must avoid making the mistakes of the past.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahathir, for your time. And now we will proceed to the question and answer section. So our first question is from Professor Mark Thompson.
Again, welcome, Dr. Mahathir. Thanks very much for joining us and sharing your thoughts. If I could follow up on your point about Malaysia as a economic tiger, as you suggested, a former economic tiger. You presided over, one of the most remarkable growth stories in the region. Before the rise of China, of course, Malaysia was one of the economic stars. So I wondered if you could maybe comment on what has remained of that economic model, what the problems of politics have impacted on that, and what the future prospects of the Malaysian economy you think are after the pandemic in particular.
Yeah, well, I was Prime Minister for more than 20 years. During that time, I introduced many policies and strategies that enable Malaysia to become a middle-income country and even to be known as an Asian tiger. Unfortunately, when I stepped down, I expected my successors to carry on the same strategies and policies, but they went away from that. They did not want to follow the policies that was introduced by me. They switched away from that, and unfortunately, they gave priority to the wrong things. For example, the fifth Prime Minister was keen to promote his own children. And then he lost, he didn't lose the election, but he lost many states. 5 states were lost, which was something that never happened before. And the next Prime Minister was openly involved in corruption, in stealing government money and all that. So the focus on development of the country was not there. And so the country regressed.
So if I understand you correctly, the problem of corruption you see as a major issue that emerged in the Malaysian economic model.
Yes, corruption is terrible. Under the 6th Prime Minister, he actually created a company so as to borrow huge sums of money. The government cannot borrow because there is a limit to the borrowing by the government. So he created this company and borrowed $42 billion. And he used the money to buy power plants at a very high price. And then most of the money simply disappeared. And then a lot of money appeared in his own account in the bank. So it is quite clear that he was involved in stealing government money, a very big scale, very big amount of money. And it was soon proven that he stole the money. And today, of course, he's been sentenced to jail.
If there are no further questions while we're waiting, Dr. Mahathir, then perhaps I'll ask you about another subject, which is the situation in ASEAN at the moment, your assessment of it. Again, the issue of reviving economic growth in the region, the relationship with China, which you've already addressed, but also one other issue that perhaps is worth talking about here is the situation in Myanmar, the civil war-like situation, and what the association could be doing in that regard.
Well, people do not appreciate ASEAN, but it is one of the few regional grouping of countries that has survived for more than 50 years. And the whole purpose of creating ASEAN was not as a trading bloc. It was to avoid confrontation between the members. The proposal was that the leaders should meet every year and discuss problems where we don't go to war with each other. So ASEAN is the only grouping of countries that avoided confrontation and wars by having the people sit around a table and discuss problems between them. So that is an achievement on the part of ASEAN. And many of the ASEAN countries learn from each other, and we see development taking place like in Vietnam, in Cambodia, in Indonesia. Some countries have got problems. They have dictatorships and the like. And Myanmar, of course, is one of the worst problems because the military seized power and has been very oppressive of their own people. But we are trying to resolve that by trying to talk with the leaders, with the military leaders. So ASEAN is a grouping of countries of Southeast Asia that has managed to avoid wars and confrontation, but has formed a good trading bloc, as well as remained very peaceful.
Professor Thompson, I'm aware that there are a couple of questions in the chat box, so I would raise a number of them to Dr. Mahathir if he doesn't mind. One of them is as follows. Earlier, you pushed back on the idea that Asian values is authoritarianism under another name and argued that it is incompatible with human rights. Do you still stand by the notion that Western liberal democracy is not universal and that Asia needs to adapt it to its values?
Well, we see morality in the West, for example, among the Europeans and Americans, has collapsed. And moral values now are thrown out of the window. They do a lot of things that were at once forbidden by them. But now they take pleasure in displaying their disregard for good values. For example, the family concept. There is no more respect for the family as an institution. You can have a man marrying a man, a woman marrying a woman, and that is called a family. They don't respect marriage. Marriage is no longer important. They can do what they like, follow their liking, and of course, they even sleep around. And that is a fact. That though there is a collapse of moral values in the West, but in the East, no. We reject LGBT and all that. That is not, to us, that is not acceptable. We want to retain the good values of the past because they lead to a good society. But we see in the West, respect for parents is not there, respect for marriage, respect for family are no longer there. And people just, everything is about being equal and freedom. Everything, you have to do it, you want to do something because you are a minority, nobody can stop you. So there is a big difference now between Western values and Asian values. And I support Asian values.
Thank you, Dr. Mahathir. And there's another question from one of the members of the audience. It reads as follows: your longtime counterpart, the late Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, has mentioned twice that it is impossible for Malaysia and Singapore to reunify if both countries would adopt the same sets it is possible for Malaysia and Singapore to reunify if both countries would adopt the same sets of fundamental policies, particularly on races, ultimately. What do you think about the prospects of any form of Malaysia-Singapore reunion, or the comparative perspective on the racial policies in Singapore and Malaysia?
Yes, at one time Singapore was a member of ASEAN, Malaysia was a part of Malaysia. But we find that the Singaporeans have got a different composition in terms of their mix of people of different races. At the same time, they were not familiar with the system in Malaysia. And in 1964, when they joined Malaysia, they created a problem because they were demanding equality of all races, that there should not be any protection or discrimination in favor of anyone. That is their Malaysia policy. And because of that, they undermine the stability of this country, where we, at the time of independence, we have stated the conditions for being Malaysian. But Singapore obviously rejected that. And as a result, the leadership, the Prime Minister at that time decided to expel Singapore and for Singapore to become an independent country. But the people of Singapore and Malaysia are related mostly. So we want to have good relations with Singapore, but not necessarily as a member of Malaysia. That is our stand now.
So may I follow up on this question to ask about your views on racial politics in Malaysia and also Southeast Asia in general? So you have also been a member of Malay nationalist parties and also a member of a multiracial coalition of parties, the Pakatan Harapan. So may I ask, what exactly are your views on racial politics in Malaysia and Southeast Asia in general?
Malaysia is a multiracial country, but the other countries in Southeast Asia are also multiracial. But in those other countries, in Indonesia, the Philippines, in Thailand, the people from outside, the migrants who settled down in these countries accepted the language, the culture, and the way of life of the people of the country or their adoption. But in Malaysia, the Chinese and Indians do not want to adopt the language or the culture of the indigenous people here. They want to retain their relationship with their countries of origin. So they are called Malaysian Chinese or Malaysian Indian. So the link with their former country is still there, is still real. So because of that, there is a division in the people in Malaysia between the indigenous people and the people of migrant origin. That makes it difficult for us to handle problem. You know, in the United States, you may have a black man as a president, but then he is very American in his way of life, in his language. It's the same with Britain. But in Malaysia, the Chinese want to remain Chinese, the Indians want to remain Indians, They are not identifying themselves with the original nationals of Malaysia. That is why today in Malaysia, race is still relevant because people of a certain race will not support, for example, a candidate from another race. In a Chinese area, the candidate for election must be a Chinese. In the Malay area, it must be a Malay. And the Indians had to depend on support from Malays and Chinese. So race is still a very important element in Malaysian politics.
So we will proceed, in the interest of time, we will proceed to one final question before we end this webinar. It says as follows: currently in the Southeast Asian region, there is a problem related to disputes in the South China Sea. For example, there are claims from China and also some other ASEAN member states of ASEAN. And we all acknowledge that it has become more complicated due to interference of other foreign powers as well. So how should ASEAN countries and also China be able to reach a consensus or a compromise on these issues?
One thing is obvious. We cannot go to war against China. We are not going to win. We are a small state. So we have to live with this claim. How do we live with this claim? Actually, the Chinese have not occupied islands which belong to Malaysia or the other countries. Malaysia has got an island in the South China Sea. The Chinese have not disturbed them. At the same time, although they claim the South China Sea belongs to China, but they have not stopped ships from sailing through the seas. Even warships can sail through without being stopped or examined by China. So the claim is there, but the implementation is at a very low level. They don't claim to have a right to check on ships passing through or to invade islands belonging to members of the ASEAN countries.
So as I'm aware of the time, here marks the end of the webinar, and thank you all for joining. Once again, I would like to express our gratitude to Tun Dr. Mahathir, Professor Thompson, as well as the Southeast Asia Research Center at the City University of Hong Kong. For more information about GLC, please visit our Instagram page at HKUGLC, and we hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Professor Thompson, thank you once again.
Yes, and thank you, Anfield. And it was very interesting discussion.
So we look forward to working with each other again in the future.
Yes, indeed.
So I will end the conversation now.
Yes, please do. Thank you.
Thank you very much.